Sorry about the voice. This is end of festival voice.
Yeah, it really is. I was worried about mine, but you've thrown that into perspective, so I appreciate that.
I've never done a last show of the festival where I could talk properly.
Really?
Yeah, it's just you wear it out. And I'd like to say, everyone always goes, oh, so many shows back to back and doing extra shows, and your voice just gets worn out. But it's just drinking. You know what I mean? Like, you can't blame it on anything else. Anyone can talk for an hour. It's not that hard.
Yeah, sure. And are you drinking every night? What's your social calendar like during Edinburgh?
My show this year was called Fully Functional because this is the first time I haven't been drunk on stage for my shows, like, in my entire career. And other shows were called, like, Hammered and Alcoholocaust. And so I thought, I'll see if I can do a run sober, which I have done, but I'm drinking after the shows about every sort of second or third day. My girlfriend's pregnant, so it's pregnant chicks don't like the Edinburgh Festival as much as you might think. There's not the best environment. Do you want to go into a dank cave and breathe in spores for an hour?
Sure.
While I get drunk in the corner. Yeah, so...
So how is that? How have you found that? If you're drinking, what's it like not being drunk on stage for the first time? I mean,
I've been doing that in America. For a couple of years now. And that was really, America was the thing that stopped me doing it. When I used to be drunk on stage here, no one really cared. And, then over there, it was like, Jim has a problem.
Yeah, okay. And did that make you reassess? Or is it a different experience?
It was well, I had some minor liver problems after Edinburgh 2 years ago.
Okay.
It was just a bit enlarged. I had a condition that the doctors were calling shitting blood.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that one. So
we've gone dark early, ladies and gentlemen. No, that's good. It's all good.
I thought I should fix that.
Yeah.
Even I saw that as a bad sign.
Sure.
And so I went off the booze for 8 months, realised that I did miss it, and then decided to take it back up again, but not on stage.
Okay. And what's the experience of performing? Like, what's the difference in the experience of performing? Do you find that being drunk on stage gives you an extra edge, takes away an edge, gives you an extra risk of creativity?
I have the greatest shows I've ever done. I've been leather drunk.
Okay.
And the worst shows I've ever done, I've been leather drunk. So
okay.
So I'm losing the two extremes, but I'm more consistent, and I think my shows are better all over. You could have shown up to any gig I did this month, and it was going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Where
the last other Edinburghs, it could have been a disaster.
Okay.
But it was, it's good now with people videotaping every show. Every show I do gets on the YouTube. Just like if it's 10 seconds of it or whatever from someone's camera phone. I was getting my dick out like 50% of the time. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's the sentence I'll be clipping to advertise the show online. Okay, so did you feel like you were out of control? Were you happy to be out of control?
I was enjoying being out of control, yeah. I was happy to be out of control.
So let's just go back a little bit and try and place you in context. I'm sure most people here will have seen you or seen you either live or on a DVD. But let's just, and we'll just sort of spend a few minutes setting you in context as well, because I realise you all have told the story of how you started many times.
Right.
But just to kind of place you, how long have you been going as a comic?
I did 3 open spots when I was 17, and then I didn't do it again till I was 23, and I'm 35 now.
Okay.
But the 3 open spots when I was 17 were in Sydney, and the first one, I went into the comedy club, and I did really well. And then they found out my age, and they said, you got to bring a parent to the next one. You know what I mean?
It's ideal for your act.
Yeah. So I got my dad to take me down, and then the second one I died because I was nervous because my dad was there. And then he let me do another one, and it went a little better. But my dad had that chat with me in the car on the way back that said, "This isn't for you, mate."
Oh,
You're
man.
Right. And I really felt a little bit like, and I thought, I guess he's right. I guess I can't do this. And then I got up again when I was at university. I studied musical theatre. And
you mentioned that during the show. I couldn't tell if that... Okay.
I lie and say I finished my degree on stage, but I didn't. But I was 6 months off.
So how come musical theatre? Was that a love of yours? Is that something was that something your parents forced you into as a sort of backup?
It was the same course that Hugh Jackman did.
Okay.
In Perth.
That is the most credible musical theatre course in the world.
Well, it was a university that was a performing arts based one. Plus, it was one that was the furthest point from my parents in Australia.
Okay.
And that was the big draw to get out of home.
Sure.
You know, and it was also I didn't have good enough grades to get into university, so I had to do something audition based.
Okay.
I didn't really care about how you did at school.
Sure. And so, how were you on that course? Were you, because you're obviously as a performer, as a stand-up comic, you, I think, have the appearance of having thrown it all together, and you know it's fairly blunt, but there's a lot of deftness going on there, and I'm sort of envisaging that, like, secretly underneath it, you could break out into, do you know what I mean? As if every stumble is actually calculated and choreographed.
I think my show's slightly more calculated than I lead on. I would agree with that, but I mean. Yeah, look. If I had my way, I'd be all singing, all dancing. I would, but I don't. I don't have the voice anymore, so I can't do that.
Really, I couldn't tell if you were being dry then or not.
No,
I love it because surely you've got your way. You're selling out monster-sized venues, and, you know.
I'm a fairly camp guy when it comes down to it. I listen. I got satellite radio in my car, and I listen to the musical channel. Okay. And my girlfriend just looks at me because I go, "Oh, I love this one." I go, "Oh, Stephen Sondheim. They never improved on Sondheim." And I'm really bad like that. Yeah. For some reason, I've been given a tough guy image. I don't know. But you can be both, right?
So, well, let's look at that tough guy then. When you started off as a comic, were you, those first few open spots or your first year or two when you returned to it, were you doing the sort of material that you're doing now? Did you have the sort of attitude?
I got to be honest, I've still got a few enemies from it. I wasn't told at that stage that you had to write all original jokes.
Sure.
And I'd got nodules on my vocal cords. And that's why I had to give up the musical theatre course and all that type of stuff. I couldn't speak for 3 months.
Okay.
And I still get them every now and again now. But I had nodules, and I couldn't speak. And I was just watching Richard Pryor live in concert over and over. And then I watched the Chris Rock HBO special. And I just stole a lot of jokes from that. And I was in Perth just telling jokes about how hard it was to be a young black man. I was maybe doing that for about 2 months before people went, I didn't know why the other young comics hated me. Because I was from a background where musical theatre and acting and all that was where no one wrote their own shit.
Yeah, of course. So
I took another 3 months off and tried to write 5 minutes and thought, Jesus, this is fucking hard, this.
Yeah.
And then started again.
So what kind of stuff were you writing then when you started writing your own, your first
I started writing religious jokes pretty early on.
Okay.
I remember one of my early routines. I did a lot of things about the theme song from the A-Team and a boy band routine. And but I remember one of the first sort of religious jokes I did was I was on ecstasy, and I remember trying to go to sleep while the Hour of Power was playing on the TV. This isn't a joke. This is where it came up. And there was this talk about, I never knew at that stage that God wasn't born before, that didn't do any godlike activities before 30. He was just rocking out as a carpenter.
Okay.
And I thought, well, surely he knew he was God. There must have been a moment where his mum went, "How I got pregnant, funny story." Right?
Yeah.
Right, but then it dawned on him and he was like 30, and maybe he did know the whole time, right? But he worked as a carpenter. Maybe Joseph sat him down and said, "Look, it's great that you're the Messiah and all that, but maybe you should get yourself a trade first.
Yeah.
What if this religion thing doesn't work out?" I remember thinking, like, that was like a real bit, you know? And before that, I didn't have bits. I did a thing where I went, "What do you call this?" to the audience, and they'd go, "It's your funny bone." I go, "But it really hurts when you hit it." I go, "I'd like you to meet my hysterical testicles," right? And I thought, I know that was gold, but it's real. That's real fluff. That, you know what I mean? There's no much depth to it. Anybody can come up with that idea. Or...
Did you feel at the time? Did you notice? Did you think of it as fluff, or was it just when you found the God stuff? You went, hang on a minute.
Yeah, when I went, there's more you can do, and I've never been a guy who's had a notebook or a set list or anything like that. I've never written a joke down.
Sure. So the stuff about God that kind of switched on something for you, and you thought, I mean, what was the driving force there? Did you think this is stupid, and I want to tell people this is stupid?
Well, I think every comic also works towards their strength. There's something I don't know what I've got that makes it so that I'm a palatable guy to be offensive.
Yeah, okay.
Right, because you watch a lot of open mic guys that tell jokes that aren't as offensive as what I tell, but I'm sitting there going, ooh, ooh, don't say that.
Yeah.
Right? And there's something, I don't know if I've got a level of charm or what it is, but there's some reason that I can say the word cunt in America and no one else can say cunt in America.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm being serious. I'm the only guy living in the States who... There was one thing that HBO did when I got the special. So the HBO special was like a big moment for me.
Sure.
And also because I was so in like the Chris Rock one and and I've never been like a Bill Hicks guy or anything like that. I always liked all the big fucking lights and the stuff and the big specials. So anyway, because that was my introduction into America, HBO went, okay, you can say cunt as much as you want, but you got to do it after the first 10 minutes because the ratings fall in 10-minute slots.
Okay.
And it's one thing to get good ratings, but the big thing is holding the ratings after 10 minutes.
Okay.
And that's the one they care about, whether people are turning off or not. So I had a cunt light at the back of the room, which was if you watch that special for 10 minutes, I don't say it, and then I just slip one in. Aunt Panda's a bunch of cunts, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm just cunt for the rest of it. But it's like that bit in Rocky where he goes, switch back to Southpaw, kid. You know what I mean? Like, I remember it being a big relief, like, and we're on.
Yeah,
right?
Okay.
And then after that, I've never had anyone have a problem with it or anything.
So I think it's... I totally agree with you that there is something more palatable about you saying it, and I wonder if that's because of your status on stage. You're not strutting, telling everyone how it is. You're kind of you're almost beaten. Do you know what I mean? It's like you've got that same energy as when you see Bruce Willis in a vest getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yes, I understand.
Do you know what I mean? He's the hero you can believe in because he's just been beaten shitless by life, and your kind of demeanour and how you talk. I
think I self-deprecate maybe a little bit more than people give me credit for.
Sure.
As well. And I think it's subtle in many cases, but
yeah.
I think that's one of the big secrets to dirty comedy is self-deprecation.
Okay.
There's no use just talking about some female that has bad genitalia unless your genitalia is bad as well, and it's all meshed together.
A delightful analogy.
No, but you know what I mean? Unless it's all meshed together.
Absolutely.
It can't just be like, at the end of this show, I've got a terrible story about a threesome that involves a rape, and it's a horrible story.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's sort of heartwarming for no apparent reason.
It really is. It really is. It's an incredible coup there, switching it like that.
And, and then I did a weird gig last night because I haven't been doing any other gigs. And also, for the last sort of 4 years, excuse me, I've only been doing gigs really to people who are fans of mine. You get to that stage, especially in America, where it's just theatres, and then coming over here, it's just the Edinburgh Festival, and you're just people that are buying shows, reading the reviews, and coming to see you. And I hosted Best of Fest last night in the same venue that I do my show. And it was fucking terrifying.
Okay.
Because I hadn't for 4 years performed in front of a crowd that didn't already really like me.
Sure.
And I realised that a lot of these jokes now are just engineered to my fans. And I probably wouldn't be a very good club comic anymore.
Okay.
And I used to be quite a good club comic, but I think if I had to get up at John Lewis Watford tomorrow, I'd probably die.
Yeah, okay. Okay, because you're routine has become evolved to fit the perception of you. A lot of the jokes are about what we're expecting from you.
And when everyone's cheering, nothing seems offensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when you say something and people go,
yeah, let's think about that.
And then you go, and then you actually go, fuck, that's an offensive joke, man. And I told a joke about this girl in this car, and she offered me a lift, but she rang her mother up first. This is a joke I haven't told for years.
I remember seeing you in Jongleurs Camden.
She rang her mother up first, went, hi, Mum, it's Carla. I've just met a nice guy. I'm going to give him a lift, but in case I get raped or murdered, his name's Jim Jefferies. And I thought that was very odd because she offered the lift.
Yeah.
And then, so I sat in the car, and then 3 miles down the street, I turned to her and went, you just made this rape really awkward, right? She freaked out. She freaked out. Now, that was better response than I got at 1 a.m. And then some guy just yelled out, he went, rape's never funny. And then look, there's an argument for this thing when you say, talking about cancer's never funny, talking about pedophilia is never funny, talking about rape's never funny. It's true. And then, but then he said, I said, why is it never funny? And he went, well, why don't you ask a rape victim like that? And then my brain thinks, well, falling over a banana peel's not funny to the guy who falls on the fucking banana peel, right? And I know that they're two different things. I'm not saying, but I'm saying you can, if you come from the right direction, sort of make anything funny, you know? But I think also audiences have to realise when you see an offensive comic that if you're offended by one thing, it's almost a selfish emotion, which is harsh to say to people because people have things affect them in their own lives.
Sure.
But if I talk about cancer, you can't laugh at the AIDS joke and vice versa. Mm-hmm. You either have to be offended by all of it. And I'm okay with that. If you're just a person who's highly strung and you get offended by everything, fair enough. That's just who you are. But if you got to override being offended by one subject.
You can't pick and choose. That's kind of a hypocrisy, is what he's saying. Yeah, to be only offended by
and it's very hard for people to do because people have emotions and emotions can override anything, but you got to try to, you know, I had someone commit suicide in my life. I find it a very tense thing, and I always find it weird how many like clean comics will flippantly say, why don't you go kill yourself to an audience member or something stupid like that. And I always think to myself, fuck, that really ruins families. More than disease. At least disease, you get to say goodbye to the person.
Sure.
Right, but suicide destroys people and leaves people feeling guilty and blaming themselves and all that type of stuff. It's a fucking horrible thing when it happens to you. And so I don't like joking about it, but would I stand up if another comic joked about it and stand up and go, it's never funny to make it? No, I'm not, because I'm not a fucking moron, right? So I hate saying that because I don't want to upset people. I don't, but you know, they got to be smarter than that.
So, I mean, I also think as you say, it's about self-deprecating. In that example of you've made this rape really awkward joke, the victim is kind of you in that joke because, like, you're, you know, even in the sort of the invented logic of that joke where that's what you were planning, you know, you failed. Do you know what I mean? So you're like, so it does have that kind of internal angle where you're not the victim. Where she's not the victim, where you're the victim. Yeah.
Well, I got a lot of stories like that. The final story, as I said, about the threesome, at the moment, that one, as I said, it ends with me trying to have a threesome and having a threesome with two girls. And that always sounds like bigging yourself up like I fucked two chicks, right? Sure. But the fact is I fucked two chicks badly. Yeah. and I was the one who that disappointed everyone in the room and, you know.
And do you have to, when you take that story, when you take the literal truth of what happened, do you find that you need to adjust elements of it in order to keep you being the victim in all of our minds?
Yes and no. There's some little embellishments here and there. You know, it's like even over the course of the festival, there's a bit where I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I've taken a gram of coke in 40 minutes and my cock's shriveled up like a walnut and I'm about to have sex with these two girls, but then you're just thinking this is not even going to work, you know. Mm-hmm. And then, like, over this run, for some reason, and I don't know why, I've made my balls really big in that scene because I just think it's a funnier visual if my cock's really small and my balls are really big.
Okay.
And so I don't know why I've decided that I can't remember. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't remember every detail of my fucking life.
Sure. Okay, so
I'll tell you a funny thing about that story, right? Basically, it starts off with an A-list movie star. I'm at the Montreal Just for Laughs Comedy Festival, and it gets a bit out of hand, and he starts getting a little bit rapey with these two girls, and I stop it. And to congratulate me, they basically have a threesome with me, which is a weird thing. Now, I've never told anybody who the movie star is, and I'm not about to tell it right now. But there is...
Did you just audibly say, damn?
But there's another guy who's very famous, who I know, who rang me up after I told that story, and he goes to me, he goes, fucking hell, man. He goes, you really embellished that story. I was never as bad as that. And then I went, oh, I forgot you tried to rape someone. It wasn't that, you.
Oh, God.
And what it was basically this guy, he thought I embellished, because he was in a bar and he was just getting a bit grabby at a girl. I went, time for you to go to bed. Come on. You know what I mean? It was one of those type of situations. And he went, you made me sound a lot worse than I was.
By putting you in a different room, in a different scene with all the rest of it.
Yeah, and then I got off the phone and I was thinking to myself, my friends are shitty people, man.
So I really enjoyed doing this interview. I think we've got some really funny stories about Jim's life and career, but we've also got some great stuff on structure and process, on what it means to be a dirty comic, and the self-deprecating nature of the performer in that case. Also, we've got some stuff, a lot of things on comic storytelling. Jim's a big storyteller, as he'll explain. Also, at the very end of this show, we've got some very specific advice for new comics, really helpful insight into one of the most important things to consider if you're trying to grow a fan base, as I'm sure everyone is. But also, I think from the point of view of a non-comedian listener, I think he says some really interesting stuff there about the relationship between the clubs and shows and growing beyond the clubs. As you know, I'm in Adelaide at the moment at the Fringe, and I'm actually gigging out of town. I didn't quite realise how little opportunity I was going to get whilst here to see other shows in the Fringe. That will all change in Melbourne in a month, but obviously I can't interview people for this show until I've seen them. So I'm doing my best to squeeze them into my nights off, and I've got a couple of interviews lined up that I'm really excited about. So more of that in Melbourne, but we've got some coming up in the next few weeks as well. Now, awards. Sexy, exciting, totally meaningless, but very flattering. I found out this morning that I'm up for a Chortle Award. Chortle.co.uk, as many of you will know, is a website specialising in frequently insightful, occasionally catty reviews of comedians, and it's also a sort of a hub for comedy news and correspondence and things like that. This show, I'm very pleased to report, has been nominated for Best Podcast and is up against Pappy's Flatshare Slamdown, Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre Podcast, and Peacock and Gamble. They're all brilliant shows. They're genuinely very funny, exciting shows. I'm thrilled to be in their company. But only one podcast can win, so let's just reflect for a moment on what a win would mean to those other acts. I mean, Herring could put that award next to all of his other awards, couldn't he? Pappy's could put theirs in the background of their new TV series that they're doing, and Peacock and Gamble could use theirs to club a baby seal to death, as is their custom. I'm sure a win would mean a great deal to all of them, and I'm sure it would mean a great deal to their producers and their PR firms and their big Hollywood agents. And as I sit here recording this alone, talking to you from under my duvet to reduce background noise, I was thinking, all of those shows, all of those guys have got much bigger fan bases than I have. I think that's fair to say. They've got mailing lists, all sorts of stuff like that. What I've got, though, is loyalty. I reckon they're going to ask their listenership to vote for them, and I reckon maybe 30-odd% of their fans will actually get around to doing it. There's not many of us, but I think if every single one of you votes for this show, goes to chortle.co.uk and casts their vote, then I reckon we could just about scrape third equal. And come on, everyone remembers the third man on the moon, right? Am I right, guys? So go to chortle.co.uk, follow the link to cast your vote if you fancy. That would be very kind of you. Thank you for all your emails. info@comedianscomedian.com if you'd like to contribute. Tweet me at comcompod. And now, let's get back to Jim Jefferies.
So the elements of your work that are that are autobiographical. When did you start telling stories about your life, like in the genesis of your persona on stage?
I thank Edinburgh for that, because before that, when I was just doing 20 minutes, so I've had routines that. I had a routine about taking family muscular dystrophy to a brothel that was 30 minutes long, you know, and I don't think many comics have that thing, and you can't do that on the circuit. You can't just get up and I'm doing one story. And I started doing that towards the end before I got off the circuit, but you can't start off with, I'm going to tell you one story, because then it's like, what if this one story seems to suck?
Yeah.
And you've got, what are you going to do for the next 18 minutes when they're not into it, you know?
Yeah.
So coming up to Edinburgh for my first festival, I had my 20-minute set, and then I had to write another 40 minutes to do the festival. And so I thought, well, I'll tell some stories and stuff. And then I realised I was good at telling stories. And I thought, oh, well, this might be a way to go. And then I started bringing in, like, sitting in a chair and chatting, like,
yeah,
you know, weird type of stuff. Like, I had, like, a Barker lounge in one of my specials and, you know.
Okay. And is that to sort of say to the audience, this is what you're going to get, that thing of having a chair on stage? Or is it just...
well, it's just, I think it's sometimes you can tell a story a bit better seated down. I think people focus in on you more.
Yeah.
But my first Edinburgh show, and it was of its time, was called Porn Idol, because Pop Idol was popular. This is even before the X Factor kids. This is how long ago this was. And it was basically me telling a few sex jokes, but the big hook was I had a story about I was in a porno once.
Okay.
As what happened was I was young and I needed the money. That's what I'll say. I came out to England and I got an agent and everything. And then the whatever the porn channel is, Television X or whatever it was, they started doing game show parody porn.
Okay.
And I didn't fuck in it. I was a game show host. This exists, this tape, and I showed it on a big screen. And we did a version of Stars in Their Eyes called Cum in Their Eyes. And I played Matthew Kelly, and I was about 24, 25. I'd been a comic for about a year and a half or something. Basically, we had one guy that dressed like Eminem.
Okay.
And he had like a hockey mask on and came out with a chainsaw. And then another girl dressed like Britney Spears, and then they fucked. And then he came on her, and then I came out afterwards and went, wasn't that great?
Oh, God.
And I remember having my arm around a girl covered in jizz, waving goodnight like this. But the thing... So that wasn't really a topic I could just talk about in the clubs. So I thought it was more an Edinburgh story.
More of a challenging...
But I'll tell you the funniest thing that happened from that. I should start telling this again because I've never put it on tape or anything, this story. But the funniest thing was that I remember that every comic would know this moment in a different format, was when they don't just fuck in porn and pull out and come on the girl's face. The guys, and this guy was coked up, and he had the guy from the corner, and he gets close. And then when he says he's close, he runs in and does it, in case you were ever wondering how that happens. So he's off to the side, masturbating, and I'm sitting in a chair next to him, and his cock's about here. And he's just chatting to me. Right? And he goes to me, he goes, Jim, how'd you get into comedy, mate? And I went, oh, you know, I just started doing some open spots when I was at university, you know. And he goes, don't know how you do that, mate. That's got to be the hardest job in the world.
Yeah, I think that's worth revisiting.
Yeah, every comic's had that conversation, but never like that. And then he went, all right, ready, and ran off.
And ran.
The girl sort of pricked up, like, all right, what are we doing?
Well, if it'll make you feel more comfortable for the rest of this interview, I'm perfectly happy to go the extra mile.
I thought you were going to say to me that you're in a porn as well.
No.
I've always been happy that I've done that Edinburgh show, because I think now, especially with like, oh shit, sorry, I got to turn my fucking phone off, sorry. Especially now with me having my own TV show in America, there's a good chance that I'm famous enough now that could make a National Enquirer or
Sure. Sure.
And, you know...
You've got in there first yourself.
I've already said that I did it 1,000 times, so what's the problem?
So do you think you've become the sort of comic that you thought you would be when you were a younger actor? I mean, obviously you said your influences at the time were prior.
Yeah, no, not really. I think I evolved into this. I think every comic, this is going to sound silly, thinks they're the best comic in the world.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why, because every comic's writing the jokes that they want to hear.
Yeah.
Right, so my jokes are fucking tailor-made for me. I think they're great. Right? But they mightn't meet everyone's taste. And the hope is that many people agree with you.
Sure. Now, that's an interesting point. Have you ever tailored what you did to try and make it more accessible to other people? Or have you always gone, I'm going to do this because it makes me laugh?
No, I've never really tailored it. I've always just hoped that I'd get a following, and that you know, I got to give America a lot of credit for having such great cable networks that let you swear and stuff like that, because over here
you must have very limited options.
I wasn't getting a lot of options here. Like Comedy Central were very nice to me, but I could do like an 8 out of 10 cats every now and again, or I allegedly... Paul Merton says that I was the worst episode of I Got News for You, and I still think I killed it.
Really?
And I've had I had a terrible 8 out of 10 cats. I had one bad Buzzcocks and another good Buzzcocks, but I always think I did really well on that episode, and I don't know why he thinks I was so bad. I think it's because I just kept on talking and didn't mention the news. but I had the crowd laughing.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think I was actually playing the game, but those games are so stupid.
Yeah.
No one wins, and if you do win, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, the real game is to
be funny for mine and to cause a ruckus.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And Moira Stewart was hosting, and we took a bit of a shine to each other, me and Moira. I'll tell you, we did. I made her blush. Hard to make a black woman blush. That's you got to really talk them around.
So, when you said you didn't, I mean, did you enjoy doing those shows? Did you enjoy that kind of combative environment? A lot of the current, the way the circuit and the way people think maybe about Mock the Week at the moment is it's a very combative environment where everyone's struggling to get heard and get their joke in because it could help sell their tour.
Yeah,
was that your experience?
I've never done that one. That one does look scary. The worst TV show I ever did was did Chelsea Lately, Chelsea Handler's show in America. Okay. And it's a really popular show on the E channel or whatever, but a really popular show. And they said it's a panel show, and I thought, I've done lots of these in the UK. I'm a panel guy. I can do it. But in America, the panel section is 2 minutes of the whole show, maybe 3 minutes. And it's just, they're talking about, like, Lindsay Lohan and why she, you know, it's real fluff. And I sort of I just sat there like that, going, all right, bide your time, wait till you have a zinger, you know. Yeah. And then, time's up.
Oh, no.
Didn't say anything. Didn't say anything.
Oh, my God.
Then I went back there and I thought, all right, I'm ready this time. And then I did a joke about Rolf Harris. And then I was like, they don't know who Rolf Harris is. And they all just stared at me, and you know, there's nothing lonelier than trying to explain a man that sings about two little boys to a bunch of Americans. Like, Jesus.
So in the creation of your hour at the moment, there's a lot, as I was saying before, that kind of deftness where there seems to be a lot going on under the surface in terms of how, like, I mean, I don't want to sort of spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but the conclusion that you come to about the Edinburgh Festival and inspiration and stuff like that, it wraps your show together really neatly without and makes your point without being remotely overbearing or worthy or anything like that. Do you ever, when you write a show, how do you write an hour? How long does it take you in the year?
Well, this show is my easiest one to write because I didn't come last year, and also because basically in America I do an hour and a half every show, so it just forces you to write more. I do most of my writing on stage, and for this show I had maybe an hour and 40 minutes to choose from, and then I tried to choose what flowed the best and what seemed to be, you know, for me, it's always, all my shows, there's a formula to it. There's a few jokes, a little bit about what I've been up to in the last year, and then a bit of social commentary, a bit of stuff on religion, and then after religion's done, we sort of take a break and we do 2 long stories.
Okay.
And the long stories are sort of my favourite bit of the whole thing, but I just think it's all... I always like just, at least at the beginning, just to talk about me for a bit, you know. And I think people think it's probably egotistical or something like that, but the fact is I'm not that well read to be a political comic. And the only subject I'm a real expert on is me.
Sure.
And, you know, and so when I say social commentary, anyone can give social commentary. You don't have to be well read for that.
Okay.
Because that's just your opinion on what you see society doing, and that's just paying attention to what's around you.
And one of the things that you, whether you're well read or not, one of your great skills is making those social commentary, making really quite big concepts, tearing into them, unpacking them, and then making that very accessible to an audience. I'm thinking of your routine at the moment about imagine if God was a guy at a party.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How would he behave?
Yeah.
Based on the way God behaves in the Bible and in people's
I like that
imaginations.
routine too. We're putting that's our only surreal episode of the TV show.
Okay.
We're going to do God at a party. We're trying to get Will Ferrell.
Oh my God.
we are, yeah. That's what we really want. Because he's a friend of one of the directors.
You're, I think, doing a little bit of an impression of him, of Will Ferrell being God, in the act out of being God.
Well,
just when you say that, having seen it the other night, I can really see that.
Well, I started doing it that way, and then it was like someone said that to me, and then it was like, why don't we just try to get Will Ferrell? And I never thought about it, but it's sort of how Will Ferrell would act when he gets upset, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go on.
It's weird to get to that stage when someone goes, how about we just get Will Ferrell?
Yeah, man.
And you go, you think? I'll tell you the weird one. I was in Montreal this is like a comedy. I'm going to name drop a little bit here. But I was in Montreal last month doing the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival. And it's the week before this festival starts. So I was doing this show, just doing it up in Montreal. And then afterwards, that festival works you like a dog because you're actually employed by the festival. It's not like you're up there by yourself. You can't pick and choose your gigs.
Okay.
So they say, you got to do this other club over town after your show. And so they rushed me over to this other fucking club, and this club had like 12 people in it. And then I didn't get on stage for an hour, and those 12 people were apathetic, and it was 2 in the morning. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing here, right? And then as soon as I got off stage, I got all the way over the other side of the club, over to the other side of town. And then my agent rings me up and goes, where are you? And I said, I'm over at this shitty club. And then he said, I've been sitting backstage with Jamie Foxx for 40 minutes. He's been waiting to meet you. And I'm like, I've got 12 people to disappoint right now.
Oh, my God.
You know, I never got to meet him. And it was one of those things that, like, my father's favourite movie is Ray. And I thought that would have been cool because I'm not a big comic in Australia, and that would have been something for my... That would have been...
Can you turn your phones off, ladies and gentlemen? Particularly if they're terrifying.
It does sound like a nuclear... Yeah. And that was a real Simpsons, the plant shutting down. But yeah, I still have that want to impress my parents. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, this is probably the greatest thing my mother's ever said, and one of the harshest all at once. So, my girlfriend's pregnant. The way I met my girlfriend was she was the prostitute in the pilot of my TV show. We didn't have a prostitute on set. She was acting as a prostitute. And so she was the actress that played the hooker that slept with the guy with muscular dystrophy. That was the thing, right? So I always get to look my son in the eye and go, when I met your mother, I employed her as a prostitute. You know, I think it's a wonderful meeting story. But anyway, 3 months after we started filming, or 4 months after she was pregnant, you know, it happened that quick. And then 5 months after the pilot, FX ring me up and say, I've got a 13-episode commitment. And I've been through 4 pilots before. This, for me, was a big, like, wow, I'm actually making a season. Mm. So I ring my mother up with a biggest bit of news I've ever had. Now, I told her a week earlier that I was having a child. So this is the second biggest bit of news I've ever had, right? And I ring my mother up and I say, Mum, they've given me my own TV show. And she goes, what is... She's always on oxygen. She goes, what is the name of your TV show? And I said, it's called Legit, Mum. And she goes, how can you call your show legit when your child is illegitimate? Right? The two biggest bits of news in my entire life, and she just smashed them in one sentence.
Man.
And I went, Mum. And she goes, I can't be the first person to say that. and I went, Mum, believe it or not, I love you in many ways, and you were the first person I called with this news.
Oh.
And she went, well, call some other people and see what they say.
Jesus. So there's no point asking you where you get that kind of brutal comic instinct from.
Oh, she's a harsh woman, man. I'll tell you how fucking lazy my mum is, right? Can't believe this one. She rings me up 3 weeks ago and goes, because I'm going to call my son Hank, right? Real American name, Hank Jefferies, right? And my mum goes, I'm knitting a blue blanket for Hank.
Oh.
And I went, that's nice of you, Mum. And then, 2 weeks later, she goes, I've finished his blue hat.
Awesome.
And then I went, wasn't that a blanket? I never said I was. She's just lying to me now. I had her on speakerphone. I've got witnesses. They all heard blue blanket.
So when you're taking that autobiographical stuff, those stories about things in your life, when you're taking them onto a stand-up stage, how much of it is ready in your head before you, like you were saying, you do writing on stage? Do they start off as stories you've told your mates?
Well, it's things like that. Like, that's the first time I've told that story sort of out loud in front of a room full of people. But this is like more a radio type thing. I do a lot of radio, and then I tell a lot of those stories, and then I think, from the response I just got now, my brain's just gone, both of those things could possibly be built into a larger thing.
Sure.
And they'd just be two beats in a story.
Yeah. And
then I got to have another bit that happens with my mother and stuff. And if I think now, there's probably more I can add on to it already. And I maybe that'll be a story that will be, from now, and then it'll be little time-lapse bits until the baby are born with all the thing, and then how my mother reacts afterwards,
Sure.
But I've already made a note that they're funny things.
But that's an instinctive process to you. You're not actually writing notes down anywhere or constructing or typing or anything like that.
No, then what I'll probably do is I'll probably tell those two things again, maybe on a different radio show to make sure it's on a fluke, or and then things like that, and tell them just on stage or whatever. Actually, now I'm thinking about that. That's a good little story for a Tonight Show. So I might use that again on Jimmy Kimmel or something like that.
Sure.
Because the cool thing now is I have done the Tonight Shows. I've performed it, and that used to be a big deal, that if you did the Tonight Shows, you were famous the next day. But now there's comics that, I think Mark Maron's done Conan O'Brien 40-something times.
Yeah, I think so.
It's something bizarre like that. But now the great thing is, because of this TV show, I don't have to do stand-up comedy on Tonight Shows anymore. I can be a guest.
You can just be a guest who's really funny rather than a stand-up who has to be funny.
And I'd rather be a guest, I think, because you get a bit more time. And, look, I'm funnier than Charlize Theron or what, you know what I mean? Like, or whatever other cunt they're going to fucking... comics can be interviewed a lot better than actors.
Yeah, of course.
So it's not much competition.
Sure.
If I'm on the show and the other guest is, I'll tell you a story. I did Lopez Tonight, before George Lopez's Tonight Show, before it shut down, and the other guest was Justin Bieber. Right.
They must have been high-fiving each other in the office for booking that double act.
Yeah. So it was me and the Biebs, right? And Bieber's mother was there. Now, Bieber's mum is the same age as me, because she fucking gave birth to that cash machine at 16.
Okay.
Right? And Bieber's mum took a bit of a shine to me. And I wasn't that interested, and I had a different girlfriend at the time, but there was a bit of me that was like, I could date Bieber's mum for a year, and I could get out of this with $1 million. Right? You know what I mean? And also, it'd just be great to be with Bieber's mum and just to go to Justin, go to your room.
Ah, forever.
Yeah. I know it's your house.
Yeah. Is there a bit of material that you're most proud of? Is there a particular story or turn of phrase that you think, that's me?
Yeah, there's a few religious bits, but weirdly enough, the stuff that I'm most proud of is the stuff that's about my childhood. Like the stuff about my dad and the vibrator in the garage, and my mother calling her Gunter. You know, I don't know why I like that joke so much about it. And you know what it is? It's something... I like it because these are things that me and my brothers laughed about for decades, and I got to share them with the whole world. You know what I mean? Like little in-family jokes. Yeah. And it was, the nice thing was that people also found them funny. And you know, like everybody has their little in-jokes about their parents and stuff like that. But I get a little bit misty-eyed when I do an impersonation of my father and everyone laughs.
Okay.
I think that's kind of sweet. And maybe not my best material, but that's the stuff I like performing the most.
Sure. Do you ever make stuff up from scratch, or do you exaggerate stuff, or do you actively avoid doing it?
I'm a great embellisher.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's got everything. My stories range from being 100% true down to about 30% true.
Okay.
And I find it weird that sometimes comics will pull me up on it.
Okay.
And then they'll go, I was there that night with you. And they'll go, that wasn't how it happened. And then I was like, the fact that you know that you were there that night with me means that I'm telling something true.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And like, you know, and sometimes you get that from some guy and you'll go like, Ross Noble, are you telling me that I'm not... I'm not living in the real world?
Okay, so but is there... where does that impulse come from? Is it simply that you're not interested in making stuff up, or is it that you can't find, that you can't embellish if there isn't a grain of truth to begin with?
Yeah, I just I can't make something up from scratch. Sure. I don't think. I don't know if I'm not smart enough or I'm not interested or whatever. But you know, occasionally I can make up a little sort of Seinfeld-esque type joke or whatever. The problem with me is often I can't watch other stand-ups anymore because I will get too influenced. And I won't say still jokes, but I can get a line from someone else's story and it will seep in. So my policy now is to watch nothing. Okay. And just stick to my guns. Or what I do watch is nothing that is similar to what I do. Yeah, okay. Right, so I love a good ventriloquist act now. Yeah. Right? That's what I want to go see. Or I want to see something silly, or, you know, I'm fucking the boy with tape on his face. Sure. These are things I can watch now. But I don't want to watch storytelling, guys. And do you see a lot of stuff when you're at the festival? I saw a lot more this year because the pregnant girlfriend, you know, they watch shows instead of getting drunk. I did set list. I was hammered on stage at set list. Okay, that's terrifying. Have you done that? I did that once at the beginning of this year. Yeah, yeah. That's it. For those that don't know, set list is a kind of terrifying prospect where comics are given their subject matter. They're given a set list as they walk to the stage, so you can't prepare anything. But the conceit of the show is you need to tell the stories. Like they'll flash up behind you something like, I got helpful necrophiliac, like deliberately difficult or provocative set list titles. Messiah STD. Yeah. It said, and then you're just like... Yeah. And it's literally your brain goes, you know when you're having sex with Jesus and you got an STD? Yeah. And then it was just like, what's all that about? Yeah, totally. But you have to treat it as if it's your material. So you've got to kind of sell it as if you're not just making it up. Yeah, yeah. How did you find that experience? It's a great leveler, isn't it? No, they laughed. I don't remember a single word of what I said. I was drunk, but it's like apart from being drunk, your brain's just going, and you feel like it was out of body. I'm serious. It was one of the most exhilarating things.
Yeah. It's like your first gig all over again. You have all these comics backstage of all various, I was backstage with kind of Eddie Pepitone and Richard Herring and people like that, and Trevor Noah as well. And we were all just going, what the hell? What is it? What are we going to do?
Yeah. And I was stressing out so much and pacing around, and everyone else had already done the gig, so it was my first one. So I think at the beginning of the run, a lot of people would have been pacing, but the people who have done it once were pretty calm.
Yeah.
But I was like stressing, going, I'm going to be shit, I'm going to be shit, I'm going to be shit, I'm going to be shit. And my girlfriend pulled me up on it to the side, and she went, "You're acting like an asshole." She goes, "Everyone knows you're a good comic. You're acting like a fucking asshole." And I said, "What are you talking about? I'm stressed." He goes, "You know what you are? You're the thin girl talking to the fat girl, saying how fat you've gotten." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know that girl. I'm really sorry."
What advice would you give to budding stand-ups?
It's turn over material as much as possible. The most important thing is I'm going to say quantity of material over quality. And the more you have, the more people buy into you. The fact is that there's so many bitter old comics that go, "I don't know why, I kill it in the clubs every week. Why am I not on TV? I'm always killing it in the clubs." Yeah, you're killing it in the clubs with the same 20 minutes. And that might be the most amazing 20 minutes you've ever heard. But people will only see you twice. They won't see you 3 times. If it's word for word and exactly the same. So the aim, I reckon, is to write between 40 minutes to an hour 20 of material every year. Okay. And it's not as hard as you think if you just focus on 1 minute a week. Okay. You'll be right. 1 minute a week. And also, I think Louis C.K. said it really well, I'm quoting him from another interview, but he said when they had the California gold rush, people used to pan for gold, and they were so focused on gold that they were throwing chunks of silver away. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm here for gold, not realizing that silver is really valuable, right? Sure. So you don't just go write this amazing joke and then think all your other jokes are shit in comparison. You know. And also, if you want to get good, throw your best joke away. Yeah. Be willing to let go of that joke, because you don't want to become this guy where they yell out and they try to. I've got plenty of those jokes where they yell out, "Do the egg" or whatever, and it's like, and I'm like, no. And once it's retired, it's fucking dead, retired forever. Okay. So that's it. That's the absolute rule. You can, once something's done, it's done. I just think it's the only way you can make fans. Okay. And you put something once it airs on television, you don't do it again. Okay. It's already, or more DVD. TV you can do again. Sure. Once you put it on a DVD, that's it. It's over. And then if people yell it out and say, "Do this routine," you say the DVDs are available in the foyer. Yeah. You know that way you also sell more DVDs. Yeah. Because the thing is, how disappointed would they be if you did all the material off the DVDs? But there's a bit of them that want you to do those jokes because they want to go to their friend, huh? Yeah, totally. And on the few occasions where they won't stop, I go, all right, maybe in an encore I'll do an old routine. And they never laugh as much. They just smile and go. They just get excited, but they're not laughing, but they're just happy to see it. Yeah. You know. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that is all we've got time for. Would you please join me in thanking Mr. Jim Jefferies? Thanks, man.